In this video, we're taking a slow, gentle journey into the medieval countryside, into the lives of those who made up the vast majority of people in that distant time. We're exploring how medieval peasants survived the long, freezing winters that came every year without fail. These were people without central heating, without supermarkets, without modern medicine. They faced months of cold, darkness, and uncertainty with only their knowledge, their community, and their careful preparation. This is not a story of grand battles or mighty kings. This is a story of survival, of small comforts, of warmth found in simple things. So settle in, let your breathing slow, and drift with me into a world where winter was not just a season, but a test of endurance that began preparing for in the heat of summer. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share in the comments where you're watching from. Let's begin. The year is turning. You can feel it in the air, even though the sun still warms your shoulders during the day. It's late August in the year 1347, and you are a peasant in a small village somewhere in the English countryside. Your name doesn't matter much to history. You're one of thousands, millions perhaps, who live and work the land. But your story, your survival, that matters to you and to those you love. You wake before dawn, as you always do. The cottage is dark except for the faint glow of embers in the hearth. Your wife is already stirring beside you, and you can hear your 3 children breathing softly in the loft above. The air inside is cool, but not cold. Not yet. That will come. You stretch your arms and feel the familiar ache in your shoulders. Harvesting has begun, and there is no rest until it's done. The Lord's fields must be harvested first, of course. That is your obligation, your labor rent for the small strips of land you're allowed to farm for yourself. 3 days each week, sometimes 4, you work his land. The rest of the time is yours, though it never feels like enough. Your wife has already rekindled the fire, adding small sticks to the embers until flames begin to dance. The cottage fills with the smell of smoke and the promise of warmth. She's preparing a simple breakfast, a pottage made from yesterday's leftover grain, some onions, a bit of dried pork fat. It's thin, but it will give you strength for the day ahead. You pull on your tunic, the same one you wear nearly every day. It's patched in several places, passed down from your father, and it will likely pass to your son when you're gone. Over it goes a rough wool cloak, even though the day will grow warm. The dew is heavy in the mornings now, and wet clothes mean sickness. Outside, the village is slowly coming to life. You can hear the rustling of your neighbors, the sound of animals being let out to graze, the distant crow of a rooster. The village is small, perhaps 20 families in all, clustered around a dirt road that leads to the manor house a short walk away. Beyond that, the Lord's great fields stretch out, golden with grain ready for harvest. The sky is beginning to lighten, turning from black to deep blue to pale gray. Stars fade one by one. This is your favorite time of day, before the heat and the work truly begin, when the world feels quiet and full of possibility. But you don't have time to enjoy it. There's too much to do. You eat quickly, standing near the fire. The pottage is warm and filling, even if it lacks much flavor. Your wife hands you a piece of dark bread, hard and dense, made from rye and barley. You tear off a piece and chew it slowly. Bread is precious, the staff of life, and you waste nothing. Your oldest son, perhaps 10 years old, comes down from the loft, rubbing his eyes. He's big enough now to work beside you in the fields, and you feel both pride and sadness at that. Childhood is short here, but he's strong and willing, and you'll need his help in the weeks to come. Together, you walk out into the dawn. The air smells of earth and ripening grain, of animals and wood smoke. Other families are emerging from their cottages, tools in hand. You exchange quiet greetings, nods, small jokes about aching backs and the Lord's demands. These are people you've known your entire life, people your parents knew, people your children will know long after you're gone. The walk to the fields takes only a few minutes. The village sits at the center of its lands, with great open fields stretching out in all directions. These fields are divided into strips, each family working several strips scattered throughout. It's an old system, one that ensures everyone gets some good soil and some poor soil, some strips that drain well and some that stay wet. Fair in its way. The Lord's domain, the land he keeps for himself, is the best land, of course. That's where you're headed now. The wheat there grows tall and thick, ready for cutting. Your backs will ache by midday. Your hands will blister despite their calluses, but the work must be done. The weather can turn quickly in late summer, and grain left standing is grain at risk. You take your place in the line of workers, perhaps 30 in all. The reeve, the Lord's representative, is there to watch, to make sure the work is done properly and completely. He's a peasant like you, but chosen for his reliability and his willingness to enforce the Lord's will. You don't resent him, not exactly. He's doing what he must, just as you are. The work begins. You take your sickle, its blade worn but sharp, and bend to the wheat. The motion is one you've done thousands of times. Grasp a handful of stalks, pull them toward you, swing the sickle in a smooth arc, cut through the stems just above the ground. Grasp, pull, swing, cut. Again and again and again. The sun rises higher. The air grows warm, then hot. Sweat begins to trickle down your back, your forehead, stinging your eyes. But you don't stop. No one stops. The rhythm of the work carries you forward. The knowledge that every sheaf you cut brings you closer to being done, brings winter survival closer to certainty. Your son works beside you, trying to match your pace. He's slower, his arms not yet strong enough for the sustained effort, but he's learning. You remember working beside your own father at this age. Remember the pride you felt at being useful, at being trusted with real work. You offer him a word of encouragement, a nod of approval when he completes a good cut. By midday, the sun is fierce. Someone brings water around, ladled from wooden buckets. It's warm and tastes of wood, but you've never tasted anything better. You drink deeply, then pour a bit over your head, feeling it run down through your hair and beard. Refreshment, brief and precious. There's a short rest for a meal. You sit in the shade at the field's edge with your son, sharing the bread and cheese your wife packed. Other families cluster nearby, everyone too tired for much conversation. Children play at the edges of the group, their energy seemingly endless despite the heat. You watch them and remember when you had that kind of strength. Now you husband every bit of energy, knowing you'll need it to make it through the day. The afternoon stretches on. The work continues, cut after cut, row after row. The field slowly transforms from standing grain to neat piles of sheaves, ready for bundling and carrying. Your back screams at you. Your arms feel like they're made of lead, but you keep going. Everyone keeps going. This is life. This is survival. As the sun begins to sink toward the horizon, the reeve finally calls an end to the day's work. You straighten slowly, your spine crackling, and look back over the field. Perhaps a third of it is cut, maybe a bit more. Tomorrow you'll return, and the day after that, and the day after that, until it's all safely harvested. The walk back to the village feels longer than the morning walk. Your son trudges beside you, silent with exhaustion. You put a hand on his shoulder, and he looks up at you with a tired smile. He's proud of his work, and so are you. At home, your wife has prepared a better meal than breakfast. There's pottage again, but this time with vegetables from your garden, some peas and beans and carrots. There's more bread, and even a bit of ale, weak but wet and welcome. The whole family eats together in the fading light, too tired for much talk, but content in each other's presence. As darkness falls, you step outside for a moment before bed. The air has cooled, and you can see your breath, just barely. A reminder that winter is coming, that all this work is necessary. The stars are coming out, brilliant in the dark sky. You've never traveled far from this village, but you know those same stars shine on other villages, other peasants doing the same work, preparing for the same winter. You go back inside, bank the fire so the embers will last until morning, and climb into bed beside your wife. The straw mattress rustles beneath you, and you can hear mice scratching somewhere in the walls. But you're too tired to care. Sleep comes quickly, dreamless and deep. And tomorrow, you'll wake before dawn and do it all again. The days blur together, one harvest day after another. The Lord's wheat is cut, bundled, and carried to his barns. Then there are oats to harvest, and barley and rye. Each grain has its purpose, its place in the cycle of survival. Wheat for the Lord's table, for the best bread. Rye and barley for your bread, mixed together, making it dark and heavy but nourishing. Oats for porridge, for animal feed, for getting through the lean times. Between working the Lord's fields, you snatch days to work your own strips. Your harvest is smaller, of course. Your land is less, and some of it is not as good. But every sheaf you cut for yourself is a sheaf that will feed your family through the winter. You work with desperate intensity on these days, knowing that your time is limited. Your wife works beside you in your own fields, and even the younger children help, cleaning the dropped grain, tying bundles, carrying water. This is a family effort, a family's survival at stake. There's no room for laziness, no room for complaint. The work is hard, but it's honest, and it's yours. As September arrives, you can feel autumn truly beginning. The nights are noticeably cooler now, and the leaves on the trees at the forest edge are starting to turn. The quality of the light changes, becoming softer, more golden. It's beautiful in its way, but also ominous. Beauty marks the passage of time, and time is what you're racing against. The harvest is the most critical time of the year, more important even than planting in spring. Spring plantings that fail can sometimes be replanted, or you can make do with less. But a failed harvest, or a harvest left too long and ruined by rain or early frost, means starvation. It means death. Everyone knows this, has known people who didn't survive a bad winter. So you work until your body is ready to break, and then you work some more. Finally, after weeks of relentless labor, your grain is harvested. Every sheaf is accounted for, every bundle stored. The Lord takes his portion, of course. The church takes its tithe. What remains is yours, and you guard it as carefully as you would guard your children. The grain is stored in your cottage, in every available space. Sacks of it line the walls. Some hangs in bundles from the rafters, away from mice and rats. Your wife has already begun the process of threshing some of it, beating the grain free from the chaff, winnowing it clean. It's tedious work, but necessary. You'll thresh grain all through the winter as you need it, keeping the rest in sheaves to protect it from spoilage. But grain alone won't get you through the winter. There's so much more to prepare. Your small garden behind the cottage has been producing all summer, and now it's time to preserve what you can. Your wife and daughters work from dawn to dusk on this. Beans are dried on racks in the sun. Peas are shelled and stored. Onions and garlic are braided and hung. Root vegetables, carrots and turnips and parsnips are layered in straw in a pit dug beneath the cottage floor, where they'll stay cool and relatively fresh for months. Cabbage is shredded and packed in crocks with salt, precious salt saved and traded for. It will ferment slowly, becoming sour and strong, but it will keep and it will provide green food when nothing grows. Apples from the few trees allowed to you are carefully stored, the best ones wrapped individually, the bruised ones cut and dried. Every bit of food is accounted for, calculated in your mind against the length of winter. Will it be enough? It has to be enough. You have no choice but to make it enough. The animals too must be considered. You're fortunate enough to have a cow, 2 pigs, and several chickens. The cow is precious beyond measure. She provides milk through much of the year, and that milk can be made into cheese and butter. But as winter approaches, her milk will dry up. You'll need to keep her fed enough to survive until spring, when she can calve again and the cycle can continue. The pigs are simpler in one way. Most of them will be slaughtered. It's brutal work, and you steel yourself for it. The squealing, the blood, the sheer physicality of turning a living animal into meat. But it has to be done. The pigs can't be fed through the winter, not all of them. Better to slaughter them now, while they're fat from summer feeding, and preserve the meat. The day you choose for slaughter is cool and clear. You'll need the cold to keep the meat fresh while you work. You've done this every year of your adult life, but it never gets easier. Still, you're efficient. A quick blow to stun, a knife to the throat, and it's over. The pig's blood drains into buckets, precious for making blood sausage. Nothing is wasted. Nothing can be wasted. You and your neighbors work together, several families slaughtering on the same day, helping each other with the heavy work. The pigs are scalded to loosen the bristles, scraped clean, then butchered methodically. Every part has a use. The best cuts of meat are salted heavily and hung in the rafters to cure. The fat is rendered into lard, stored in crocks, essential for cooking and light. The intestines are cleaned and used as sausage casings, stuffed with ground meat mixed with grain and herbs. The head is boiled for head cheese. The trotters are pickled. Even the bladder is saved, to be cleaned and used as a ball for the children, a rare toy. By the end of the day, you're covered in blood and exhausted, but you look at the hanging meat with satisfaction. This is survival, tangible and real. This is what will keep your family alive when the snow is deep and the cold is bitter. The chickens will be kept through the winter, most of them. They don't eat much, scratching around the cottage for scraps and grain spillage. And they provide eggs, sporadically through the cold months, but even a few eggs are a treasure. Come spring, they'll lay more regularly, and you'll have chicks to raise. The cycle continues. As October arrives, the work shifts from harvesting and preserving to preparing the home itself for winter's siege. Your cottage is small, just one main room with a loft above where the children sleep. The walls are wattle and daub, woven sticks covered with a mixture of mud, straw, and dung. It's dried hard as stone in summer, but rain and frost can damage it, and any gaps will let in deadly cold. You walk slowly around the cottage, examining every inch of wall. Your wife follows with a bucket of fresh daub mixture. Where you find cracks or gaps, she packs them full, smoothing it carefully. It will dry in the next few weeks, sealing your home. The thatched roof, too, is inspected. Thatch needs replacing regularly, And you add fresh bundles where the old ones are thin. A leaky roof in winter is more than an inconvenience. It's a threat to life itself. The single window in your cottage is small, just a gap really, shuttered with wood. There's no glass, of course. Glass is for churches and manor houses, far beyond your means. But the shutter fits tightly, and you make sure it swings freely and can be barred from inside. Once winter truly sets in, that shutter will stay closed for days, even weeks at a time. Light and fresh air are luxuries you can't afford when the cold is fierce. The door, too, is checked. It's heavy wood, thick and solid. You tighten the leather hinges, make sure the bar that holds it closed is sound. This door will be your barrier against the wind, against the cold, against the darkness outside. It needs to hold. Inside, you turn your attention to the hearth. It's the center of your home, the source of heat and light and cooked food. The hearth is stone, carefully built, with a hood above to help draw the smoke up and out through a hole in the roof. It's not very efficient. The cottage is always smoky, and your eyes water constantly through the winter. But it's what you have, and it works well enough. You clean the hearth thoroughly, removing old ash and making sure the stones are sound. A cracked stone could lead to fire spreading, and a cottage fire in winter is a death sentence. You also gather smooth river stones to heat in the fire. These can be wrapped in cloth and taken to bed, providing warmth through the coldest nights. Fuel for the fire is perhaps your greatest concern. You're allowed, by ancient custom, to gather fallen wood from the Lord's forest. Not to cut living trees, that would be poaching and severely punished. But dead fall, dead standing trees, branches broken by wind, these are yours for the taking. You've been gathering wood all year, whenever you had a spare moment, but now it becomes urgent. Every day that you're not working the fields, you're in the forest. Your son comes with you, and together you drag fallen branches back to the cottage. The best wood, oak and ash, dense and long burning, you save for the deepest winter. Lighter woods, pine and alder, you'll burn in autumn and early winter. You're calculating constantly, trying to estimate how much you'll need. Too little, and you freeze. But gathering wood is hard labor, and you have only so much strength. The wood is stacked against the cottage wall, under a rough overhang to keep the worst of the rain off. You build the pile as high as you can reach, then higher until it looms over you. Even then you worry it's not enough. It's never enough. You also gather peat from the boggy ground beyond the village fields. Peat is wet and heavy, and it has to be dried before it will burn. You cut it into blocks, stack it in the sun and wind, turning it regularly. It burns slowly with a distinctive smell, giving off less heat than wood but lasting longer. A mixture of wood and peat will stretch your fuel supply further. Kindling too must be gathered. Small sticks, pine cones, dried moss, strips of birch bark that will catch fire easily. These are stored in a dry corner of the cottage, ready to rekindle the fire each morning. Letting the fire go out completely is to be avoided if at all possible. Starting a fire from scratch with flint and steel is difficult and time-consuming. Better to keep embers alive, banked under ash, glowing through the night. Your wife and daughters are gathering other necessities. Rushes from the stream are cut, dried, and made into rushlights. These are simple things, just dried rushes dipped in rendered fat, but they provide a bit of light during the long, dark evenings. They don't last long and give off as much smoke as light, but they're better than sitting in total darkness. You'll use them sparingly, rationing light as carefully as food. Candles are a luxury you can't afford, but the Lord's manor sometimes gives a few as gifts at Christmas. You'll save those, if you get any, for special occasions, for feast days when a bit of brightness is needed to lift spirits. Your wife has also been spinning through any spare moment, turning wool from the spring shearing into thread. This thread will be woven into cloth eventually, but that's a task for winter. For now you have the thread, and your wife has been mending and patching every piece of clothing the family owns. Worn spots are reinforced, holes are sewn, hems are let down as the children grow. Every tunic, every cloak, every pair of hose is made ready. Shoes are a particular concern. You have one pair of heavy leather shoes, and your wife and oldest son each have a pair. They're precious, to be worn only when absolutely necessary. Most of the time, even in winter, you'll wrap your feet in cloth and wear wooden clogs. It's cold and uncomfortable, but it saves the leather for when you truly need it. Extra clothing layers are prepared. You don't have much, but what you have is organized. Undergarments of rough linen, tunics of wool, cloaks of heavier wool. Your wife has stuffed an old sack with straw to make an extra layer for the bed. It's not much, but it will help hold in body heat during the coldest nights. The bed itself is built into a corner of the cottage, a wooden frame with leather straps supporting a mattress of cloth stuffed with straw. It's the only real furniture you have, besides a rough table and a few stools. You and your wife sleep in the bed, and the children sleep in the loft above. The heat from the fire rises, so the loft is often warmer than the main room, despite being further from the hearth. Small blessings. November arrives with frost. You wake one morning to find the world transformed, every blade of grass rimmed with ice crystals, the water in the bucket outside frozen over. It's beautiful and terrifying. Winter is here, not in full force yet, but announcing it's coming. The last of the outdoor work must be finished quickly. The fields are plowed, turned over for winter, left rough so that frost can break up the heavy clay soil. This is the Lord's work again. His land plowed first, but you owe this labor just as you owed the harvest labor. Your ox, shared with 2 other families, is hitched to the heavy plow. You walk behind, guiding it as the blade cuts through the earth. It's cold work, your hands numb on the plow handles, your breath steaming in the air. But it must be done. A portion of the field is planted with winter wheat, a gamble against the weather. If the winter isn't too harsh, the wheat will establish itself and get a head start on spring. If the winter is brutal, it will die, and you'll have wasted seed. But the potential reward is worth the risk. An earlier harvest next year. The last vegetables are pulled from the garden. Leeks that can tolerate some cold are left until the last possible moment, growing a bit more. But eventually, even these must come in. The garden is put to bed, covered with straw and manure, ready to rest until spring. Animals are brought into closer quarters. The cow will spend the winter in the small shed attached to the cottage, barely bigger than she is. Her body heat will help warm your home, and you can tend to her without going outside in the worst weather. The chickens roost in the rafters of the same shed. The remaining pig, kept for breeding, has its own small pen nearby. You gather the last of the fallen nuts from the forest, hazelnuts and beechnuts. The children help with this, enjoying the task, filling their pockets and baskets. These nuts will be eaten through the winter, a source of fat and flavor when everything else is bland. You also gather acorns, though not for eating. Acorns are for the pig, and you're glad to have them. Every acorn the pig eats is grain you don't have to spare. The village as a whole takes on a different feel as winter approaches. There's a sense of battening down, of turning inward. The long, light evenings of summer, when people would gather outside to talk and watch children play, are gone. Now, as soon as the day's work is done, everyone retreats to their cottages, to their fires, to their families. The church holds a special service, a blessing for the coming winter, prayers for survival and mercy. You attend with your family, standing in the cold stone building, listening to the priest's Latin words that you don't understand. But the intent is clear, and you add your own silent prayers. Let the winter be mild. Let the food last. Let the sickness stay away. Let us all see spring again. After the service, there's a small feast, the last before winter truly closes in. The Lord provides some ale, and each family contributes what they can. There's bread and cheese, some of the fresh slaughtered pork, late apples. It's not lavish, but it's more than a normal meal, and the village gathers together in the relative warmth of the Lord's great hall. The mood is bittersweet. There's laughter and conversation, children running between the tables, a sense of community and shared purpose. But underlying it all is the knowledge of what's coming. You look around at the faces in the firelight, and you wonder who won't be here for the feast next year. It's a morbid thought, but a realistic one. Winter takes its toll, especially on the very young and the very old. As the evening ends and you walk back to your cottage through the cold darkness, you hold your wife's hand and count your blessings. Your harvest was adequate. Your stores are full as they can be. Your family is healthy. You have fuel for the fire and a sound roof over your head. Not everyone is so fortunate. At home, you bank the fire carefully, covering the coals with ash to preserve them through the night. The cottage is warm from the day's fire, and you know it will stay tolerably warm for several hours. By morning, it will be cold, but the embers will still be alive, ready to be coaxed back into flame. You lie in bed, your wife beside you, and listen to the wind beginning to pick up outside. It has a different sound now, a sharper edge, a promise of cold. The children are quiet in the loft, already asleep. You close your eyes and let yourself drift, knowing that tomorrow will bring more work, more preparation, but for now, you're as ready as you can be. Winter is coming, but you've done everything you know how to do. The rest is in God's hands, and in fate, and in your own endurance. You'll survive this winter, as you've survived others. You have to believe that. You have no choice but to believe that. And with that thought, you sleep. The days grow shorter, faster than seems possible. By mid-November, the sun rises late and sets early, and the time in between feels rushed, compressed, as if there aren't enough hours to complete what needs doing. But you work with what light you have, and you've learned to work efficiently in the gathering gloom. The cold settles in more seriously now. There are mornings when the frost doesn't melt at all, when the ground stays hard all day and your breath clouds the air from dawn to dusk. The sky takes on a leaden quality, heavy and gray, promising snow that hasn't yet fallen. But it will. It always does. You wake one morning to find a thin skiff of snow on the ground, the first of the season. It's barely enough to cover the grass, melting wherever the weak sun touches it. But it's a marker, a sign. Your wife looks out the door and sighs, not with despair exactly, but with resignation. Winter is no longer coming. Winter is here. The animals sense it too. The cow is restless in her small shed, her breath steaming in the cold air. You've been feeding her carefully, hay that you cut and dried in the summer meadows, a precious resource that must last until spring grass returns. You calculate each day how much to give her. Too little, and she'll weaken, perhaps die, or at best fail to produce milk when you need it most. Too much, and you'll run out of fodder before winter ends. It's a balance that keeps you awake at night, worrying, recalculating. The chickens have mostly stopped laying, their bodies conserving energy against the cold. You get perhaps one egg every few days, and it's treated like the treasure it is. Your wife uses it to enrich the pottage, or saves it for one of the children who seems particularly thin or tired. Protein is precious now. Your wife has begun the serious work of managing the household's food supplies. She's organized everything, taking inventory of what you have. So many sacks of grain, so many crocks of salt pork, so many strings of onions and garlic, so many preserved vegetables. She does mathematics in her head, dividing the supplies by the number of mouths to feed, by the number of weeks until spring. The numbers are tight. They're always tight. She establishes a routine, a daily ration for each person. You, as the primary laborer, get the most. Your oldest son, working beside you, gets nearly as much. Your wife and the younger children get less. It seems unfair in a way, but it's practical. You need strength to work, to gather wood, to tend the animals, to do what must be done to keep everyone alive. If you weaken, everyone suffers. The daily meals become monotonous quickly. Breakfast is pottage, usually from barley and oats, sometimes with a bit of dried pork or bacon fat for flavor. Midday might bring bread, dark and dense, with an onion or a bit of cheese. Evening is more pottage, perhaps with some dried peas or beans added, or a few turnips from your winter store. On good days, there's a scrap of meat. On most days, there isn't. You eat slowly, chewing thoroughly, trying to make the meal feel more substantial than it is. The children complain sometimes about the sameness, about still being hungry after eating. You want to give them more, but you can't. You explain patiently that this food has to last, that there will be no more until spring. They don't fully understand, not really. How can they? They're children. But they try, and that's all you can ask. The cottage requires constant attention now. Every day, it seems, you find a new gap where cold air is seeping in. The daub cracks as it dries, or as frost works at it. You and your wife are constantly repairing, patching, trying to seal every possible opening. It's a losing battle in some ways. The cottage was never built to be airtight, and the smoke from the fire has to escape somehow. But you do what you can. The floor is packed earth, and it's always cold. Your wife lays down extra straw, creating a layer of insulation between your feet and the frozen ground below. It helps somewhat. The straw also absorbs some of the smoke and moisture that fills the cottage, though it needs to be changed regularly as it becomes damp and foul. You've hung additional cloth near the door, creating a sort of inner curtain. When someone must go outside, they pass through this curtain quickly, limiting how much cold air rushes in. It's a small thing, but small things matter. Every bit of warmth preserved is a bit less fuel you have to burn. The window shutter is now closed and barred. The cottage is darker for it, lit only by the fire and an occasional rushlight. Your eyes adjust to the dimness, and you find you can navigate the small space easily enough. Besides, there's not much to see. The same walls, the same few possessions, the same faces of your family. You don't need light for that. Nights are the hardest. The darkness comes so early by late afternoon in the deepest part of winter. You finish your work by feel as much as by sight, then retreat inside. The fire is built up, and the family gathers around it. This is your world now. This small circle of warmth and light in the vast, cold darkness outside. Your wife does handwork by the firelight, mending or spinning. Her hands are never idle. You might repair a tool or work on a piece of leather, or simply sit and stare into the flames. The children play quiet games or listen as you tell stories, old tales passed down through generations. Stories of saints and heroes, of miracles and magic, of times when winter ended and spring returned. They need these stories, need the hope they provide. Sometimes a neighbor will visit, braving the cold and dark to share news or simply to have other faces to look at, other voices to hear. These visits are welcome, a break in the monotony. You share a cup of ale, weak and sour but wet. And you talk about small things. The weather, always the weather. Whose cow is doing well, whose chickens are still laying. Rumors from the manor house, from travelers who pass through. From the wider world that seems so distant from your village. The church calendar provides structure to the long, dark months. Saints' days, feast days, holy days. Not all of them are celebrated with feasts, not anymore. You don't have the resources for that. But they're marked, noted, prayed over. They divide the winter into manageable pieces, make it through to St. Andrew's Day, then to St. Nicholas's Day, then to Christmas, then to Epiphany. and so on, measuring progress by liturgy. As November turns to December, you focus on the final preparations, the things that can't be done earlier. Your wife has made candles from the last of the rendered fat, a few precious candles for Christmas and other important occasions. She's also prepared special foods, treats really, to mark the holy days. Dried fruits saved from autumn, a bit of honey traded for, spices that cost dearly but transform simple food into something festive. You slaughter one of the older chickens, one that stopped laying and is eating more than it's worth. The meat is tough but welcome, and your wife makes it into a rich stew that will feed the family for several days. Nothing is wasted. The bones are boiled for broth, then boiled again and again until they give up the last of their goodness. The feet are made into a jelly. Even the feathers are saved to be used for stuffing or for making small toys. The cold deepens. There are mornings now when you wake to find ice on the inside of the door, frost coating the walls near the window. The cottage is still warmer than outside, but it's no longer what anyone would call warm. You sleep in all your clothes, under every blanket and hide you own, with the children piled together in the loft for shared warmth. The fire is kept going constantly now. You tend it through the night, waking every few hours to add wood, to stir the coals to make sure it doesn't go out. It's exhausting, and you're never fully rested. But a dead fire could mean death, simple as that. So you wake, and you tend the fire, and you go back to sleep, and you wake again. This is your rhythm now. Gathering wood becomes increasingly difficult. The nearby deadfall has all been collected, and you have to range farther into the forest to find fuel. The snow is deeper here under the trees, and dragging heavy branches through it is exhausting work. Your son helps, and sometimes a neighbor will join you, and together you work in near silence, saving your breath for the labor. You've started to burn peat more regularly, mixing it with the wood to make the wood last longer. The peat burns with a distinctive smell, earthy and slightly acrid, and it doesn't give as much heat. But it does burn, steadily and slowly, and that's what matters. You're grateful for every block you cut and dried back in the autumn. The animals are suffering in their own ways. The cow's milk has dried up completely as expected, and she stands in her small shed, chewing her cud, patient and enduring. You talk to her sometimes, when you're feeding her or cleaning out her shed. It's foolish perhaps, but she's a living thing, and there's comfort in her presence. She's warm, she's alive, and as long as she stays that way, there's hope for milk in the spring. The chickens huddle together on their roost, fluffed up against the cold. They eat what little you can spare them, scratching in the straw bedding, finding bugs and seeds. You check on them daily, looking for signs of illness or distress. A sick chicken can't be allowed to infect the others, and difficult decisions have to be made quickly. Your wife has organized the food storage with meticulous care. The grain sacks are stacked to allow airflow, preventing mold. The salt meat hangs high, away from rats. The root vegetables in their pit are checked regularly, and any that show signs of rot are removed immediately. One rotten turnip can spread to the others, destroying weeks of food. She's vigilant, and you're grateful for it. This is her domain, her expertise, and she manages it well. Water is a new concern. The stream at the edge of the village still flows, but getting to it means trudging through snow, and the water itself is so cold it hurts your teeth. Your wife melts snow in a pot over the fire for some of your water needs, but snow yields surprisingly little water for its volume, and it takes precious fuel to melt. Still, it's easier than breaking ice on the stream and carrying heavy buckets back. Washing becomes rare. You can't spare the fuel to heat large amounts of water, and washing in cold water is miserable and potentially dangerous. You do what you can, washing faces and hands when necessary, but full bathing is out of the question. Everyone smells of smoke and sweat and animals, but everyone is in the same condition, so no one complains much. Your clothes become stiff with dirt and wear. Your wife does her best, brushing them out, airing them when it's not too cold, mending the constant tears and worn spots. But there's no real cleaning happening. That will wait for spring, for warm water and sunshine, and the hope of actually getting things dry again. The isolation begins to wear on everyone. You're confined to the cottage most of the time, venturing out only when necessary. The children are restless, fighting with each other, whining and crying. Your wife's patience grows thin. Even you, normally calm and steady, feel irritable, short-tempered. It's the close quarters, the lack of privacy, the constant cold and hunger. It wears at you day after day, but you endure. You tell yourself it's temporary, that spring will come, that this is just a season. You remind the children that every day survived is a day closer to warmth and plenty. You hold your wife at night and feel her breath on your neck and take comfort in her presence. You're not alone. You have each other. That has to be enough. December brings the winter solstice, the longest night of the year. It's a turning point in its way. After this, the days will begin to lengthen again, imperceptibly at first, but lengthening nonetheless. It's a psychological relief as much as a physical one. The worst of the darkness will begin to pass. The church marks the solstice season with Advent, a time of waiting and preparation for Christmas. The priest speaks of hope, of light coming into the world, of salvation. You listen and want to believe. You do believe, mostly. Faith is necessary, especially now. Without faith that spring will come, that God is watching, that suffering has purpose, how could you go on? You make small preparations for Christmas. It won't be lavish, but it will be marked. Your wife has saved a bit of butter, some dried fruit, a precious egg. She'll make a special bread, a treat for the holy day. You've put aside a small amount of your best ale. The children are excited, talking about the feast, about the church service, about the brief respite from the grinding routine of survival. On Christmas Eve, the whole village walks to the church for midnight mass. It's bitterly cold, and the walk is treacherous with ice and snow. But everyone goes who can. The church is only slightly warmer than outside, but there are candles, dozens of them, and the light is beautiful after so much darkness. The stone walls flicker with golden light, and the priest's voice echoes in the space, chanting in Latin, words of mystery and power. You stand with your family, surrounded by your neighbors, and for a moment, the hardship doesn't matter. There's beauty here, and community, and something larger than your daily struggle. You sing the hymns, or at least hum along, not knowing all the words but knowing the melodies. Your voice joins with all the others, rising up into the dark vaulted ceiling, a sound of hope and endurance. After the service, there's mulled wine provided by the Lord, spiced and warm, a luxury beyond measure. You cup your hands around the wooden mug and let the heat seep into your fingers. You sip slowly, savoring every drop. The spices, cinnamon and cloves, and something else you can't identify, dance on your tongue. It's the best thing you've tasted in months, and you want it to last forever. The walk home is quieter, everyone tired and thoughtful. The stars are brilliant in the clear, cold sky, and you try to pick out the patterns the priest has told you about. There, the three kings following the star. There, the great bear. There, the pole star. Unchanging, constant. A guide for travelers and lost souls. You wonder about the travelers who navigate by that star, where they're going, what they're seeking. Your world is so small, just this village, these people, this endless winter. But somewhere, there are other places, other lives, other possibilities. At home, you build up the fire, and the family shares the Christmas meal. The special bread is divided carefully, everyone getting an equal portion. There's cheese and a bit of cold pork saved for this moment. It's not much by any objective measure, but it feels like a feast. The children eat slowly, making it last, and their faces are happy in the firelight. You tell them the Christmas story, the birth of the child in the stable, the angels and shepherds, the gifts of the wise men. They've heard it before, many times, but they never tire of it. It's a story of hope, of miracles, of the idea that something small and humble can change the world. You need that story, maybe more than they do. After the meal, you all sit by the fire, too content to move, too tired to do anything but rest. Your wife leans against you, and you put your arm around her shoulders. The children begin to nod off, one by one, and you carry them to the loft, tucking them into their nest of blankets and straw. They mumble sleepily, and you kiss their foreheads, feeling the warmth of their skin, the life in them. When you come back down, your wife is banking the fire for the night. She looks up at you and smiles, a tired smile but a real one. You take her hand and hold it for a moment, not saying anything. What is there to say? You're here, together, alive. You've made it this far. That's enough. You lie down in the bed, and she curls against your side. The cottage is dark, except for the faint glow of the banked fire. Outside, the wind is rising, whistling around the corners of the building. But inside, you're warm enough, fed enough, safe enough. For tonight, this is all you need. You close your eyes and let yourself drift into sleep, knowing that tomorrow will bring more cold, more work, more struggle. But tomorrow is tomorrow. Tonight is tonight. And tonight, on this holy night, you rest. The days after Christmas blur together. The brief celebration is over, and the reality of deep winter settles back in. January arrives, and with it, the coldest weather. The snow deepens, piling in drifts against the cottage walls, and you're grateful for every bit of insulation it provides. The world outside becomes a study in white and gray, the color leached out of everything. You venture out less and less. The necessary tasks, tending animals, gathering more wood from the dwindling pile, fetching water, these are done as quickly as possible. Every moment outside is painful, the cold seeping through your clothes, numbing your fingers and toes, making your lungs ache with each breath. You hurry back inside to the fire, holding your hands out to the flames, feeling the pins and needles as sensation returns. The food supplies are visibly diminishing now. The sacks of grain are no longer full and bulging. The strings of onions have gaps. The salt meat is picked over, the best pieces gone, only the fattier, tougher parts remaining. Your wife rations more strictly, and the meals get smaller. Everyone is always hungry now, not starving exactly, but never satisfied. Your stomach is never quite full, always wanting more. The children are thinner. You can see it in their faces, the way their cheekbones stand out, the way their eyes seem too large. They don't play as much, lacking the energy. They sit by the fire, listless, and you worry. But what can you do? You give them what you can, and you hope it's enough to keep them healthy until spring. You're thinner too. Your clothes hang looser. Your belt needs new holes. You feel it in your strength, in the way tasks that were easy in autumn now leave you winded and shaking. Your wife is the same, her face gaunt, her movements slower. But she never complains, just keeps managing the household, stretching the supplies, making something from nothing. The monotony is perhaps the hardest part. Every day is the same. Wake in the cold, tend the fire, eat a small breakfast, do the minimal necessary work. Sit by the fire, eat a small midday meal. Sit by the fire, eat a small evening meal. Sleep in the cold. Repeat. There's nothing to look forward to, no variety, no relief. just endless cold and hunger and waiting. You try to keep your spirits up, to maintain hope, but it's difficult. The darkness presses in, both literal and metaphorical. You find yourself staring into the fire for hours, not thinking of anything in particular, just existing. Your wife sits beside you, spinning or mending, her hands keeping busy even when her mind is numb with tedium. Sometimes you talk, sharing memories of other winters, of better times, of spring and summer plenty. You remind each other that this is temporary, that the cycle always turns, that life will get better. These conversations are lifelines, keeping you connected to each other and to hope. Other times, you sit in silence, and that's all right too. After so many years together, you don't always need words. Her presence is enough. The sound of her breathing, the occasional brush of her hand against yours. You're in this together, and that bond is stronger than the cold, stronger than the hunger, stronger than the fear. The village is quiet, each family sealed in their own cottage, focused on their own survival. You see your neighbors occasionally, brief encounters when you're both outside for some necessary task. You exchange nods, a few words about the weather, but no one lingers. It's too cold for socializing, and everyone is conserving their strength. You hear news, though, filtering through in bits and pieces. Old man Cedric has died, slipping away in his sleep one bitter night. He was ancient by village standards, and his death is not unexpected. Still, it's a loss, a gap in the fabric of community. His family grieves, and the village grieves with them, but quietly, privately. There's no energy for elaborate mourning. A baby has been born in one of the cottages, a winter baby, arriving early and small. You pray for its survival, knowing the odds are against it. Winter babies often don't make it, their tiny bodies unable to generate enough warmth, unable to thrive on mothers weakened by poor nutrition. But sometimes they do survive, against all odds, small miracles that give everyone hope. The church continues its rhythms, marking feast days and saints' days. You attend when you can, when the weather isn't too brutal. The services are shorter in winter, the priest conscious of his flock's need to get back to their fires. But the words are the same, the rituals unchanged, and there's comfort in that continuity. February arrives, and you dare to hope that the worst is over. The days are noticeably longer now, the sun rising earlier and setting later. It's still brutally cold, and there's plenty of winter left, but the trend is in the right direction. You're 2/3 of the way through. You can make it the rest of the way. You have to. Your wood supply is concerning. The pile has shrunk dramatically, and you're burning peat almost exclusively now, saving the remaining wood for emergencies or for the coldest nights. The peat gives off less heat, and the cottage is noticeably colder. You add more layers of clothing, wrap blankets around your shoulders, and huddle closer to the fire. The animals are struggling too. The cow is bony, her ribs showing, despite your careful rationing of hay. You've had to make hard choices, cutting her feed to make it last, knowing it weakens her but having no alternative. She stands in her shed, patient and trusting, and you feel guilty every time you look at her. But you're doing the best you can. 2 of the chickens have died, simply giving up in the cold and lack of food. You eat them, of course, their scrawny bodies providing a bit of meat for the pot. But it means fewer chickens in spring, fewer eggs, fewer chicks to raise. The cycle takes a hit, and it will take time to recover. Your wife has moved on to the last reserves of food. The oldest grain stored from previous years, musty and suspect but still edible if cooked long enough. The smallest, most wrinkled root vegetables, the ones saved for last because they're barely worth eating. The scraps of salt meat that are more fat than meat. Everything is being used now, nothing held back. Either you'll make it to spring or you won't. There's no point in saving supplies you won't live to eat. The meals are increasingly grim. The pottage is thin, more water than grain, flavored with little more than salt and hope. The bread is dark and hard, mixed with whatever stretches the precious grain, bark, meal, and ground dried peas. It fills your stomach without nourishing you much, but at least the gnawing hunger is dulled for a while. You find yourself thinking about food constantly, dreaming of spring greens, the first tender shoots that will emerge when the snow melts, fantasizing about fresh eggs, rich and yellow, imagining the taste of new bread made from fresh ground grain. These thoughts are torture and comfort in equal measure. They keep you going, giving you something to look forward to, but they also emphasize what you don't have now. The children ask when spring will come, and you tell them soon, even though it's not really soon. March is still weeks away, and spring won't truly arrive until April, maybe even May. But you say soon because they need hope, and because saying it helps you believe it too. At night, lying in the dark, you do calculations in your head. How much grain is left? How many more weeks until you can forage for wild greens? Can the hay last until grass grows again? The mathematics of survival, over and over, trying to make the numbers work out. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. You adjust your estimates, your rations, your hopes, and try again. Your wife knows what you're doing. She does the same calculations, probably more accurately than you. Sometimes you compare notes quietly after the children are asleep. You strategize together, deciding what can be cut, what must be preserved, what risks are worth taking. It's a grim partnership, but it's a partnership nonetheless, and you're grateful for her clear thinking, her steady nerves. The wind is relentless, howling around the cottage night after night. It finds every gap, every crack, whistle through and stealing what little warmth you have. You stuff rags into the worst spots, hang more cloth, but the wind always finds a way. It's like a living thing, malevolent and persistent, trying to get in. Some nights you lie awake listening to it, and you understand why ancient people believed in winter spirits, in ice demons, in the wild hunt riding the storm winds. It's easy to believe in such things when you're cold and hungry, and the darkness seems endless. The rational part of your mind knows it's just weather, just the turning of the earth and the movement of air. But the deeper, older part of your mind isn't so sure. You pray more in winter than at any other time of year. Not elaborate prayers, not formal church prayers, just simple pleas. Keep my family safe. Let the food last. Bring spring. Let us survive. Over and over, a rhythm like the rhythm of your breath, like the beating of your heart. Prayer as a form of meditation, of hope, of defiance against the dark and cold. And slowly, so slowly you almost don't notice at first, things begin to change. The sun at midday has a different quality, not exactly warmer, but brighter, clearer. The icicles that hang from the eaves begin to drip during the day, even if they freeze solid again at night. The chickens, still huddled and puffed against the cold, occasionally scratch with a bit more energy, sensing something in the air. You notice these signs and hardly dare to believe them. It's still February after all, and there are weeks of winter left. Fall springs can come, warm days that tempt you to hope before the cold returns with renewed vengeance. You've been through enough winters to be cautious, to not let hope run away with you. But still, the signs are there. The wheel is turning, the long night is ending, not tomorrow, not next week, but eventually. Inevitably. Spring will come. It always does. You just have to survive long enough to see it. And you will survive. You've come this far. You've endured the cold and the hunger and the darkness and the fear. You've kept your family alive, your animals alive, yourself alive. You've done what needed to be done, day after day after day, without complaint, without giving up. You're a peasant, a nobody in the grand scheme of history. Your name will be forgotten, your life unrecorded except in the fading memories of your children and grandchildren. But you're also a survivor, a link in the great chain of human endurance that stretches back to the beginning and forward to an unknown future. As you sit by your fire on a bitter February night, your family around you, you feel a fierce pride in that. You're still here, against all odds, despite all hardships. You're still here, and tomorrow you'll wake and face another day, and you'll still be here, and the day after that, and the day after that, until, finally, spring comes. March arrives, and with it, the first real signs that winter's grip is loosening. The snow begins to melt in earnest during the sunny afternoons, creating rivulets of water that run down the village paths. The dripping becomes constant, a sound of hope, the ice retreating inch by inch. You venture outside more now, standing in the weak sunlight, turning your face up to it like a flower. The warmth is faint, barely there, but it's real. You can feel it on your skin, a promise that warmth will return, that the world will live again. The birds begin to return, first a few scattered individuals, then more and more. You hear their calls in the morning, tentative at first, then growing bolder. They're as hungry as you are, searching for any scrap of food, any sign of spring. But they're here, and that means something. It means survival is possible. It means the cycle continues. Your food supplies are desperately low now. The grain sacks are nearly empty, just a few handfuls left in the bottom. The root vegetables are gone. The salt meat is a memory. You're eating things you wouldn't have considered food in autumn. Bark bread, nettle soup made from the first green shoots brave enough to emerge, even grass boiled until it's soft enough to chew. But you're eating, you're surviving, and every day the sun climbs a little higher, stays a little longer. Every day is one day closer to abundance, to the time when food is plentiful again. The cow has survived, though she's skeletal, barely able to stand. But she's alive, and in a few weeks there will be grass for her to eat. She'll recover slowly, and she'll give milk again. The chickens that made it through are beginning to lay sporadically, and each egg is celebrated like the miracle it is. Your children are thin and pale, but they're alive and growing stronger as the days lengthen. They venture outside more, playing in the melting snow, their laughter a sound you haven't heard enough of through the long, dark months. That sound, more than anything, tells you that you've made it. You've survived another winter. One morning in late March, you wake to find the first wildflowers blooming at the edge of the forest. Tiny yellow celandines pushing up through the last patches of snow, defiant and beautiful. You kneel down and look at them for a long time, these small, brave things that have also survived, that are also celebrating the return of life. Your wife comes to stand beside you, and you take her hand. You don't need to say anything. She knows. You've done it together, made it through the hardest season, kept your family alive when so many things could have gone wrong. You're both exhausted, worn thin by the months of privation and worry. But you're here, standing in the spring sunshine, looking at flowers. In the coming weeks, you'll work harder than ever, plowing and planting, trying to make up for the lean winter. You'll forage for every edible green thing, rebuilding your strength. The cow will recover and calve, providing milk again. The chickens will lay more eggs. The garden will produce. Slowly, meal by meal, the abundance will return. But for now, in this moment, you simply stand in the weak March sunshine with your wife's hand in yours, and you're grateful. Grateful to be alive, to have survived, to see spring again. This is what medieval peasants did, year after year, generation after generation. They endured. They survived. They hoped. And when the next winter comes, you'll be ready. You'll harvest and preserve, gather fuel and seal your cottage, ration carefully and endure patiently. Because now you know with absolute certainty that spring always returns. Winter is long and hard and dark, but it ends. Life continues. The seasons turn, the wheel spins, and you turn and spin with it, doing what humans have always done, surviving, persisting, finding warmth in small comforts, and hope in the promise of tomorrow. Thank you for joining us on this quiet journey through a medieval winter. May your own nights be warm, your rest be deep, and your dreams be peaceful. Good night.